Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for today, Wednesday, October 16, 2019.
Good morning, everyone. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. Since today is our first meeting with Commissioner Villegas, I wanted to also welcome her. I'm establishing quorum and doing roll call. We have Commissioner Villegas, Garcia, James, Davis, and Caloza are present. President James, you do have a quorum. May we start with Bureau introductions, please, starting with Bureau of Engineering.
Eddie Ohanian, Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning, Ruben Flamenco, Bureau of Street Lighting.
Dan Myers, Bureau of Sanitation.
Good morning, Art Martinez, Bureau of Street Services.
Linda McAlinchie, Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning, Ted Jordan, Public Works General Counsel.
Again, Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. President James, we do not have any speaker cards under general public comment. We also have no commentary under the Neighborhood Council comment section. No speaker cards received for any of the items for today's agenda as well.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll close general public comment as well as the Neighborhood Council category of commentary. And is there a second to my motion that we approve the meeting minutes from the meeting of Wednesday, October 2nd, 2019 by Commissioners Davis and Garcia? Any objection? Without objection, we will do so. And let me start by also welcoming our new commissioner, Commissioner Villegas. Welcome aboard and congratulations on an expeditious confirmation process, and impressive as well, I might add. Let's go ahead and take a number of the assessment hearings that we have this morning. Agenda items 1 through 13 are assessment hearings for council districts 2, 3, 14, 10, 4, and 12. Mr. Flamenco, I might have missed a council district in there, but go ahead on items 1 through 13.
Ruben Flamenco, Bureau of Street Lighting. For the record, the hearing dates for items 1 through 13 were originally scheduled for October 9th at the board and October 15th at City Council. We were contacted by the board on October 1st, 2019 that the board will be on recess on October 9th for Yom Kippur. We mailed a notice to all benefiting property owners for items 1 through 13 on October 3rd that the hearing dates have changed from October 9th to October 16th at the board and from October 15th to October 22nd at City Council. With that in mind, items 1 through 13 pertain to lighting districts which we are creating in conjunction with private development projects. Ballots for items 1 through 13 were mailed on August 29th, 2019. Ballots for items 1 through 13 must be received by the City Clerk's office by next Tuesday, October 22nd. We have not received any objections to date on items 1 through 13. We are requesting for the board to adopt and forward items 1 through 13 forthwith to City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Flamenco. Noted no objections on 1 through 13. Any questions on 1 through 13? Commissioner Garcia has made a motion that we approve agenda items 1 through 13. I'll second it. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda items 1 through 13. Any issues sending 1 through 13 forthwith? We'll send 1 through 13 forthwith. There's also an agenda, a meeting journal for approval, meeting minutes for Friday, October 4th, 2019. Is there a second to that motion as well? By Commissioners Garcia and Davis. Any objection? Without objection, those meeting minutes are approved. Agenda item number 26, administrative item, sent back for approval to the Board of Public Works. The Mayor and City Council have approved and authorized the Board on behalf of Sanitation to execute the proposed personal services contract with Pacific Sewer Maintenance Corporation to provide chemical root control treatment services for city sewers for a term of 5 years at a cost not to exceed $15 million. This item was heard by the board. It's coming back for signature. Is there a second to my motion that we approve agenda item number 26 forthwith? By Commissioners Davis and Caloza. Any objection? Without objection, we will do so. Agenda item number 14, revised task order solicitation number 2 and a budget increase. This is in Council District 14, Bureau of Engineering, from the pre-qualified on-call list. David Evans and Associates, the Soto Street widening from Multnomah Street to Mission Road project, recommending that the board first authorize the city engineer to issue a revision of TOS number 2 to David Evans and Associates, increasing the budget authority by $1,043,500 And that's from $1,283,986.40 to $2,327,550.33, which includes a contingency of $75,000. This is to provide additional geotechnical investigation, retaining wall engineering, and related design services for the project. And Ms. Lau, you'll explain what's going on here, as this item's been before us a couple of times.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Shirley Lau with the Bureau of Engineering Bridge Improvement Division. Just some background on the project. This project is located in the northeastern part of Los Angeles along Soto Street between Multnomah and Mission Road. Soto Street is a major corridor connecting cities with the communities of Lincoln Heights, Boyle Heights, and El Sereno. There are existing conditions that it has 3 travel lanes only, 2 in the northbound direction, 1 in the southbound. There's no center median, no bike lanes, no sidewalks on the east side. And traffic analysis showed that the capacity in the southbound direction is inadequate, and there's a hillside along Soto Street on the west side that during rainstorms it has debris and it falls onto the existing roadway sometimes. The Bureau of Engineering applied and received $9.3 million in Metro funding, a grant, in order to take a look at this project and basically to relieve traffic congestion and improve efficiency of the regional traffic circulation. During the last 2 years, we've been in pre-design and environmental phases. The environmental CEQA document was approved at City Council last week on October 8th. So during the last 2 years, we've collaborated with the council district. Also, we've held community meetings. We also worked with LADOT in order to make the scope, project scope, to ensure compliance with the city's complete streets and secondary highway design standards. As such, the original street widening project, it has expanded in project scope. We are now going to underground overhead power lines. We're going to have protected bike lanes in both directions, 12-foot wide sidewalks. So additional acquisition of right-of-way is also needed for street widening. And we have retaining wall along the Soto Street where the hillside is, and to also include other complete street design elements. On February 27, 2019, City Council adopted a motion. We received $26.3 million in the 710 North Gap Closure Mobility Funds. So that will bring the project total to $35 million. So with this expansion of the scope and added funds to the project, we are adding additional services to this task order for the project design. The revised estimate to David Evans is for an increase by $968,563.93. BOE has reviewed and negotiated this addition and task, and we've deemed it reasonable for the services to be provided. Primarily it's for geotechnical design, testing, evaluation. We're going to relook at the retaining wall along the whole street, traffic engineering, utility relocation, and basically other tasks to get this design completed so we can move forward to construction. For the additional 710 mobility funds, Metro did not let us know if there are federal funds or not involved. We will find out in the future. However, this project, we are adhering to the US DOT requirements for disadvantaged business enterprise participation. The goal was originally set at 6.01%, but for this revised task, the consultant is pledging 37.06% DBE. There is no fiscal impact to the general fund. Funds are available from the Transportation Grant Reimbursement Fund number 655. The Bureau requests the Board to approve the recommendations set forth in this report, and that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lau. Thank you for the reference of the no federal funding. I know we discussed that. Well, the reference in the board report to no federal funding, we discussed it in our briefing a bit. Thank you for raising it this morning. I guess my question may be for our city attorney. Recognizing that the board report indicates that there's no federal funding, even though we're using kind of that process for our inclusion calculation, you indicated that there might be some federal funding that comes along in the future, I think you mentioned.
Yes, correct.
So my question, Ted, do we need to do anything with the board report regarding the potential for federal funding, or do we leave it as is because as of today, the date of the report, there is no federal funding?
Well, if there's no federal funding as of today, then the report is accurate. What I still need to get my head around is the use of the DBE program in a case when there's no federal funding,
Because we might get federal funding, yeah.
whether it's appropriate to use DBE when there's no federal funding.
Yeah.
That it's appropriate to use DBE when there is federal funding, of course, but its use is generally only allowed when there's federal funding. You can move on, but if I may ask that you not do it forthwith.
Yes.
And that way we have a chance to
My
take a
suggestion.
look at that.
Yeah, so what I would do is, to not slow the item down, I would move the item, and then we won't send the item forthwith, which will mean that it won't become final until the end of the Friday morning meeting, which will give the city attorney's office and contract administration an opportunity, a couple of days, to determine whether or not we can use the current procedure we're using. And if there's a problem, then we can move to recall the item, move for reconsideration of the item on Friday, even if we just need to put the item on hold.
It shouldn't be I know we don't have to deliberate it here, but the rule is, in fact, if there's a violation of race or gender, disadvantage does not indicate either of those two, and it should not be, and I will hold out for the deliberation on that and anticipate the decision on it, but it doesn't appear that it is a violation of local rules. Disadvantage. It just provides for us a structure for when, in fact, we do receive federal funds, we're already in the hopper for what is going to be anticipated for us in the future, and at the same time, we've not violated the local provisions that are provided for us in 209, which simply tells us that we cannot identify based upon either race or gender, and disadvantage does not touch either of those two requirements.
You want to comment, Ms. McGlinchey? No?
So the Federal Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, the reason that there could be an issue is the definition of disadvantage. You are presumed to be disadvantaged based on race or gender ownership of the company.
That's not the only criteria.
That is the primary criteria, and less than 1% of disadvantaged businesses are not race or gender predominantly owned.
But you could have it based upon some other factor that is neither race nor gender, correct?
You could, yes, there is an allowance for that. I've only come across that one time.
But I would argue that even though you've come across it one time, in the fact that it is provided does not make it less than a variable that is available under disadvantage. Therefore, the race and gender alone do not singularly define it, even though our data and our results have indicated one thing. It does not dictate it in definition, on the other hand, is what I would argue.
So, Commissioner Davis, you're comfortable moving forward with it and getting an answer on Friday?
Yes.
Okay. Anything? Then I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 14 as stated without an amendment to the board report, since as of today's date, there's still no federal funding. Is there a second on that? Commissioner Davis, any objection? Without objection, we'll move agenda item number 14. As you heard our discussion earlier, Ms. Lau, we're not going to send it forthwith to give the city attorney's office and contract administration an opportunity to make a determination as to whether or not we should revise it on a motion for reconsideration on Friday or let it go final.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. And Mr. Jordan, so I'll hear from you about that before Friday morning's meeting?
Yes.
Great. Agenda item, actually, let's take our oral report, one of them this morning. We have a number of folks from Metro here. We always appreciate that. And it's agenda item number 28, Transportation Project Status Update, Metropolitan Transportation Authority, and the Department of Transportation. And Mr. Pennington, thank you all for being here this morning. We had such a good report last time on the project made on the punch list items on the Crenshaw line that I thought I would save you all some time this morning and call you a little early.
Good morning, President James.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to present again. For the commissioners who don't know me, my name is Brian Pennington. I'm Rick Clark's deputy. So with your agreement, President, I'd like to call up our first speaker, Stephanie Leslie. Stephanie, would you like to come forward?
See if we continue with our good news. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Great. Good to see you again.
Nice seeing you too. And I think we are continuing with good news. Okay, I'm reporting on the Crenshaw LAX project, an 8.5-mile set of new tracks going in at the north end, starting at Crenshaw and Exposition, going to the south end, joining into our existing green line at the aviation station. This is a photo. This was a major milestone for the project this quarter. We began our SIT-1 testing, which is our systems integration testing. So in this photo, this train is moving back and forth between our existing green line station at aviation up to the north to our new Century station. So what is included in our SIT testing? It's testing of our software systems, so the trains are communicating obviously with the new systems on the Crenshaw line, but we also have to have this software integrated and communicating seamlessly with the existing green line station. So this test was effective. It was very positive and it went off well. Also in this photo, although Brian went ahead of me, we are operating the train under the new OCS system, so it is completely being run by the new system on the Crenshaw line. So we're very proud of this milestone this quarter. Continuing north on the project, segment B1, we're starting to place concrete, the finished floor concrete on many of our stations. That's what you see in the top photo. In the lower photo, doing more civil work, installing medians at the various crossings up and down the alignment. Segment B2, another closure that we had and we just finished last week and reported on to you, I think 2 weeks ago, was the closure for completion and restoration of our UG3 structure, our final cut and cover structure on the project. In the upper photo, you see the steel beams sticking out. What the crews are doing in this photo are cutting off the tops of those beams so that they don't protrude into the roadway and into the roadway structure. Once all those beams are cut off, you see in the lower photo, we're now continuing with the backfill operations. Still part of this closure, and this was a 60-day closure that, again, completed last week, was installation of more utilities, primarily at our intersections along this road, and this was between 60th and 67th Street on Crenshaw Boulevard. And then finally in the lower photo is the installation of the pavement. So this road has been completely restored and is now open to traffic. I think in this section we have 2 lanes now open freely in both directions, and further north we have 3 lanes in both directions. Continuing north in segment C, we have in the bottom photo, I mentioned before, we're putting in concrete for the finished floor. This is installation of the tactile strips along the edge of the platforms, and this is going in at many of our stations. The upper photo, we are installing the frames for our elevators again at all of the underground stations and at the one aerial station at Century. Upper photo, installation of our tunnel booster fans in one of the cut and cover structures. And in the lower photo, maybe hard to see, but behind the scissor lift, you see this huge dark gray structure, ductwork. This is for our over-track exhaust system, which assists with the ventilation in our underground stations. And finally, just a photo of one of our emergency stair exits, and this is at the Expo station. Also, the lower photo is beginnings of erection of our canopy structure at the Expo station. And new update on the corrections for the restoration activities that we did last summer. I think we're at now about 380, I believe, of the 426. So still making good progress on completion of those activities. And if I can back up a little bit, with our restoration that we did over the last 60 days, we completed that with no outstanding issues, so no punch list associated with that last closure. So hopefully that's good news.
That's good.
And finally, these are the numbers for our BIF. And we are currently, for Crenshaw, we have a total of 589 awards with a total grant value of $13.7 million. Any questions?
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, we'll start with Commissioner Garcia.
Hi, thank you. Nice seeing you again. I have two questions. Very good on the punch list, by the way. You guys, it's moving along nicely. I can see the numbers have really gone down. But a question, is there a new completion date or is still remaining the same? And if it is, when is it the new one or remaining the same?
Overall completion for the project?
Well, for this piece of it then.
We're hoping to get it done by the end of the year.
Okay.
And I think we'll beat that.
Okay,
but we're
good.
Still targeting by the end of this calendar year.
Oh, good. My next question is, have you recruited any new businesses into your program since the last time you were here? I know that you guys had a meeting, and I'm not sure if it was, only 2 people had come, or it was something like that. I remember we spoke about it. I just wanted to know if we did any new recruitment of businesses that are being affected by the construction.
If I could pass this to my
Sure.
colleagues to
Thank
answer,
you.
please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Paula Carvajal, and I'm with the Business Interruption Fund for Metro. And we do continue to canvass in the area. There were no new businesses that participated in any of our workshops, but there's ongoing canvassing by our consultant PCR, and we have businesses continually approach our program and ask for information. Some of them will actually submit an application, but from when they submit an application and they complete all of the documents that are required, it could be either a short process or a lengthy process. But we are actively engaged with the community and the businesses in the area.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure we still do that.
Yes.
Because we have 3 more months, right? That they would still technically be affected by the construction. You said by the end of the year? This piece of it.
If any of our construction is affecting the businesses, even up to substantial completion, the businesses can still apply.
Okay.
So there is not a deadline of the end of this calendar year. As long as there is active work that is affecting them in accordance with our guidelines for the program, they can still apply.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one that's, I guess, maybe kind of a feel-good question of some sorts. We're starting to see some real progress that folks can see that's above the ground versus a lot of street closures for stuff that's under the ground that they can't necessarily see. That's very exciting for a community. It's very exciting for all of us.
Yes.
Are we starting to get some of that kind of feedback from the community, starting to see stuff, wanting to anticipate grand opening and full operation and revenue dates and all those kinds of things? Or is that conversation starting to ramp up now that people can see the light at the end of the tunnel?
We haven't seen that yet.
Okay.
And maybe it's just going to our construction relations and it hasn't funneled itself to me. But we are definitely going to be having a grand opening when we get to that point in the project. We are still getting quite a few requests for tours of the project, and those are more agencies and private organizations as opposed to the community itself. So we have been doing tours. We're trying to slow down right now until we at least get to substantial completion, just because those sometimes can be a little disruptive to the field crews out there.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Appreciate
Welcome.
it. We're all very excited here, so
Wonderful.
we look forward to its arrival. Commissioner Davis.
I wanted to ask, in terms of our current construction and our coordination with the Taste of Soul that's coming up this weekend, one of the big major projects in the area, and how we have done in terms of completing those portions of the project so that that project can be implemented for the weekend.
I know the contractor is also a member of the committee, and they attend the Taste of Soul Planning Committee meetings. And a major milestone, again, was opening of the restoration closure just south of the Taste of Soul so that participants can reach Taste of Soul that are coming from the south end of town. We've also poured part of the MLK pavement, and some of that backfill and pavement has been poured in place to increase the footprint for Taste of Soul at Martin Luther King for this Saturday. At the north end, we finished this quarter also the Hobus pipe replacement and repairs, and that was at the intersection of Obama and Crenshaw. So that construction is done and complete. There's one small area that's still roped off and fenced off, but that intersection is opened up as compared to last year.
Great. Now, in terms of the festival that they have there, they have information, and I know that at least, if I'm correct, the Bureau of Sanitation from Public Works and the Bureau of Street Service from Public Works both are involved in information and sharing services that we provide in the area. Is MTA also one of the agencies that's involved in the public education opportunities that exist at the festival itself in terms of the services we're providing and improving transportation, the job opportunities that exist now and maybe in the future and that kind of thing? Are you a serious participant in that?
Yes, we are. We've had a booth at the Taste every single year that the project has been in existence, and we will have a booth again this year, and it will be manned by many people from Metro, combination of project personnel and personnel from the Gateway office.
Great. Good corporate
And in the
citizens.
past, the contractors has had a booth also. I need to confirm if they have one this year. I think they do,
Yeah,
but don't
he
quote me on
does
that.
an outstanding job as well. And I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure that MTA and
Yes,
all
we
the
will
great
definitely
work
be
you
there.
do, that citizens are reinforced with the role and responsibilities we have in improving transportation and the quality of life from MTA. So I appreciate your feedback.
We'll be there in force.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Coloza?
Thank you, President James. I don't have any questions. I just, wanted to commend you and Richard and the Metro team for the continuous improvement that we've seen for this Crenshaw project. I said it last time, but I just wanted to say it again that, we're so excited to have everything in place for the Taste of Soul event, and I think that the community will be really excited when this line opens, and they'll appreciate all the hard work that Metro has put into it. So thanks for your continuous collaboration with BOE, Con Ed, and sanitation and the city family.
Thank you, and we appreciate hearing that.
Thank you, Commissioner Coloza. No other questions? Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Look forward to next time. Mr. Pennington, who would you like to go next, sir? Mr. Baker, welcome back. Looks like we're going to talk about the regional connector.
I am. Thank you, President James and Commissioners. I'm glad to give you a brief update of the Regional Connector Project, which is a 1.9-mile underground link between Little Tokyo and our 7th and Metro stations. So we have 3 new stations on this alignment, and I'd like to just take you briefly through that discussion today. Turning over to some of the milestones that we've accomplished since we last reported, I'd like to start out by saying we have, for all intents and purposes, received approval of our Civil Restoration Package B. Now, this is a big set of drawings that shows us how we're going to restore the streets, and I wanted to bring that up and thank all the bureaus represented here for their contribution to that. It's been a Herculean effort on behalf of everybody, and I just wanted to acknowledge your hard work and to thank your teams for their contribution. Secondly, another milestone is we have excavated completely underneath Flower Street. So what you're driving over now is completely excavated. And in fact, the last picture, the picture on the right there, you see we've actually broken into the 7th and Metro station. So this was the station that was built 25 years ago. So now we have the connection between the new alignment and the existing station. So 3 events since last report I just wanted to acknowledge before we get started. I know you all don't have a chance to come on a site visit, although you're welcome. So I thought I'd just take you through briefly a pictorial account of some of the progress. Beginning at Little Tokyo Arts District Station, you can see some photos there. This is the roof slab we're putting on, which represents another major accomplishment as we're going through the Y underneath that First and Alameda Street, so we're really pleased with the progress there. This remains on the critical path of the project. Turning to the next slide is a picture from our historic Broadway station. This is between Spring and Broadway. And you can also see we're at the second level of concrete. So these giant holes in the ground that you've been seeing for several months are now starting to fill up with concrete. And so that's good progress. And so we're pleased with the work that's going on here. This has probably been our most complex structure, but progress is advancing very well. And adjacent to that station is, on the next slide, we have the cavern here. This is a crossover cavern, and I highlight this because this was another area of work where the city Bureau of Engineering supported us a lot. This is very unique construction, first time in Los Angeles. It's progressing well. The excavation finished several months ago. We're completing structural concrete. It's been a tremendous success on the project. And then finally, at the Grand Avenue Arts Bunker Hill Station, this was our deepest station, 110 feet of excavation, you may recall. And you can see on the picture of the left, we're not at the top yet, but we're approaching the top. So this is a huge structure that's just basically buried. So it's a very big building that's being constructed. Again, very important, and still a lot of work to go on this, but we're happy with the progress that's being made.
Gary, can we go back to the Sim Cavern for a moment?
Yes.
Only because I remember a lot of discussions, a number of meetings that took place at a number of different levels regarding the Sim Cavern. And it seems to me that, as you just mentioned, we've gotten through all of that complication. And these are big projects. They're complicated projects, obviously. It's an engineering feat of many sorts. And it just seems to me that that we've gotten through all of the issues that related to the Sim Cavern, such that we moved on to other stuff now. With both sides, everyone satisfied?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, the excavation process was the most critical, and that was the one that we and the Bureau of Engineering were both monitoring very carefully. It performed as predicted in the design, and so we've avoided any major settlements in the area, and that was the big major concern. So now we're finishing up the final structural concrete liner.
Okay. So, well, that was a good collaborative process.
Yeah. This site has been visited by people from all over the country. A lot of technical papers written about it. It's kind of been a big deal if you're an engineering geek. The last slide here on project pictures is Flower Street. Just kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. It's just a big box structure that's 1,400 feet long, extending from 4th Street down to our station. And so progress is going well. They're going to be pouring the roof on that here in the next week or two, or parts of it. So I'd like to turn your attention next to us on the next slide about some upcoming requests that we'll be making before the board for street or intersection closures. We are now approaching the area or time where we're starting to restore the streets, and the first intersection is at First and Alameda. It's a process we started talking with the community extensively about back in May. We've revised our work sequences a few times to accommodate some of their questions, but recently there's been additional questions raised about work during the holiday season of December, and so the project has decided to defer construction of this critical work for the month of December to better address some of the community concerns about impacts to their shopping. And so we're continuing to coordinate with Little Tokyo community on that. That work will take about 7 months, and it'll be completed in basically 2 phases. So there'll be a board report requesting those closures, I would say probably early December. And then also Temple Street, there's a crossing there where the current Gold Line tracks are. We need to create an underground structure there, so there'll also be a closure of that that'll be requested. Any questions?
I think we're good so far. Go ahead.
Okay, looking at the community outreach, we continue to stay actively engaged with the community throughout the project, but here focusing on Little Tokyo in efforts to market some of their businesses and promote their businesses. Well, now focused on the street restoration work that's going to be upcoming. And recently this summer, you can see we supported their some of their festivals with a free shuttle service that we sponsored that took 5,000 visitors between parking areas that we provided and the shopping areas. So we continue to support the community very actively. And then just wrapping up with a snapshot of the Business Interruption Fund for Little Tokyo. We've seen since last report there's been one additional grant that's been given. There's also been a reevaluation recently of if there's any opportunity to include new members. We obviously continue to encourage people to apply, but some of the concerns that have been expressed by the community and by various businesses, they don't meet the criteria, so we're unable to expand the services beyond what we've had to date. So I think we've done our due diligence as far as that's concerned. So that concludes my report on Regional Connector, unless there's any questions.
Any questions at all? Commissioner Caloza.
Thank you, President James. It's not a question, but more of a comment. And I've mentioned it to the Bureau of Engineering as well, but we're also working on the LA Street Civic building, and we are also putting together a plan for our outreach for the Little Tokyo community. And so I just want to be mindful of also the outreach that Metro is doing, and maybe we can set up a meeting afterward just to make sure that construction with this Metro line and the work that we're doing for the LA Street Civic building don't overlap in certain ways, and we can kind of coordinate our general outreach for the specific community.
I think that's an excellent idea. Would you like Olga from our office to reach out to your office to coordinate, or Bureau of Engineering?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Caloza. Anything further? Thank you, Mr. Baker.
Thank you.
Mr. Pennington.
Good morning, Mr. President and board members. I'm Jim Cohen. I'm the project manager for Section 1 of the Purple Line. Okay, the first slide just shows what Section 1 is. We pick up at the existing Wilshire Western terminus of the Purple Line. We have 3 stations, one at Wilshire and La Brea, at Wilshire and Fairfax, and Wilshire and La Cienega. It's just about 4 miles long. Final design is done. The overall project is around 53% complete. Our forecast revenue service date is 2023 late, and the FFGA is in 2024. First slide kind of gives you an update on what's happening at Wilshire La Brea Station. We're completing the second lift exterior wall pours, and that's kind of shown on that upper right photograph. We are also, because the station don't have a concourse for the entire length, there's a section of the station where you can just look up to the ceiling. So that second picture on the right is what we call the dance floor. So we have to put in shoring to a certain level so we can build the forms and place the second level of wall forms. The wall forms are already complete at the track level. Then we're going to place the wall forms for the second level, and then we put the roof on. So that's this shoring that's being done right now. It allows us to build the second stations. The photograph on the lower left is our TBMs. Section 1 has successfully tunneled 2 out of the 4 miles. The tunnels between Wilshire Western and La Brea have been complete. Right now we're starting to work on the cross passages, which are connections from each tunnel for emergency purposes, and we'll soon be starting with our invert and our walkway. So 2 out of the 4 miles of tunneling are complete. I will say that we did kick off our tunneling from La Brea to Fairfax on the 7th of October, and so we're on our way to Fairfax. We have one machine that will start off. As soon as that machine is completely underground, buried, then the second machine will take off. So tunneling for what we call Reach 2, which is La Brea to Fairfax, is underway. Next slide. At Fairfax Station, where those two TBMs will be heading towards, we're in the process of putting in HDPE, which is our gas proofing and waterproofing lining, rebar, and mechanical and electrical. The upper right photograph shows you the invert, the total invert, which is the bottom of the station, has been placed, and now we're coming up with the walls. That white styrofoam and that brown material is put on the walls to protect the HDPE because we don't want any damage to it. We don't want any holes to allow any water or gas into the station. The lower right photograph, that white material is actually the HDPE. So I think I've said before, it's sort of like a bathtub effect. We have on the bottom, on the sides, and in the top, the entire station is wrapped in this HDPE material to keep it dry and keep the gas out. The lower left photograph shows what happens after the HDPE is. We come in and we put lots of rebar in those walls. It's almost very difficult to see the HDPE when we finish because there's so much steel in these walls. And then the concrete comes afterwards. What's not on this slide, and I'd just like to mention, staff will be back on Friday. We have an agenda item. We have a board item for a long-term closure at Orange Grove Avenue, which is just adjacent to the Fairfax Station entrance. That's required to build the entrance. It's a non-contentious item. You'll hear it on Friday. We have the Peterson Museum. That's right adjacent to the closure. They have no objections, the council's district, so we've done all our homework. But I'm not going to be here on Friday, but staff will be here to make that presentation. And it's important to get that closure because the station is located adjacent to Orange Grove. It allows us to do some additional construction work in order to support the station construction. And that's going to be for an 8-month closure in the board report for Friday. Last slide is just our BIF funding, and I was told since June we've added 2 businesses, and the reason it's kind of slow as far as that's concerned is we've been underground at all our stations for a long time. All our decking is done. Our impact to the surface is minimal. All the work, as you can see in these stations, is underground. So, but we did add 2 BIF members since June. Any questions?
No, sir. I know we'll see some of your team as well as some of our team on Friday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Pennington.
Good morning, President James, Commissioners, and Bureau Reps. It's good to be with you again here
Welcome
today.
back.
My name is Dan Kamor, excuse me, and I represent Section 2 of the Purple Line extension. The drawing, the map, the slide before you is a reminder to all of us what the project entails. It's a 2.5-mile project, $2.5 billion total budget project. We're currently reporting final design at approximately 95% complete, and the overall progress for the project at approximately 25% complete, and our forecast revenue service remains unchanged in 2025. The next slide shows an aerial view of the project area in Century City. I failed to mention on the previous slide that Section 2 extends the Purple Line from where the Section 1 terminates in Beverly Hills at Wilshire and La Cienega. We have 2 stations, one at Wilshire and Rodeo in the city of Beverly Hills, and the second station is in Century City in the city of Los Angeles.
Dan, can I ask you a quick question
Sure.
before I forget? The Constellation Century City closure, I know that it doesn't inhibit the Twin Towers access to the parking structures. There are different ways in and out. But when is that going to reopen?
That's a good question. Right now we're working with the contract. The current closure expires at the end of this calendar year.
Okay.
The contractor has expressed interest to come back to your board to request an extension of that closure. We're working now with the contractor to determine exactly what that extension request will be.
Okay.
We obviously want to request enough time to complete all the work that they need to do, but we don't want to ask for too much, but we don't want to ask for too little and have to come back again. We want to have a realistic expectation to provide to your board when you consider the matter.
Are you already in touch with the Century City Chamber on that possibility yet, or is it too early?
Yes, and to your, I think your original concern, we've been working with the stakeholders in the area, and the parking structure that's on Century Park East between Constellation and Santa Monica Boulevard, we've been working with that stakeholder, and we've issued a change notice to our contractor to develop a traffic signal at mid-block to allow for movement in and out of that parking structure onto Century Park East. And right now, the contractor is procuring some long lead items, but we have every hope and expectation that that construction activity should be completed by the end of the calendar year.
Okay. Thank you.
So this slide depicts the construction area in Century City. The white in the slide is the excavation and the future station location in Constellation Boulevard. The purple areas on the outside of the project are the staging areas at the surface parking lots and whatnot. And you'll take note on the right-hand side, there's a yellow or amber sort of box. That'll become interesting in coming slides. So moving to the next slide, this aerial photo on the left, I think, depicts the closure which the President alluded to earlier. It shows Constellation Boulevard at Century Park East, the westerly portion of the future excavation for the station. We're calling that the launch box. That's where the tunnel boring machines will be launched. I'm happy to report, and unfortunately the information on this slide is about a week or so old, but we've reached the bottom of that launch box excavation, and we're hoping our next quarterly report will be able to report that the contractor has poured the bottom slab of that excavation and started to assemble the tunnel boring machine for tunneling starting after the first of the year. So that's an exciting milestone for our project. We've reached the bottom of that excavation. You may remember I mentioned the yellow square on the previous slide. We call that the tunnel shaft, and that excavation has reached approximately 60 feet deep. The contractor is now ready to start this week some geophysical exploration along the project alignment to make sure there's no obstructions when the contractor starts to tunnel towards the east from Constellation Boulevard. The next slide, we have a nice picture. This slide on the upper left shows the excavation when it was about 50, 60 feet deep. You can see the arches in that excavation. That's to allow for the future tunnel boring machine to launch out of the excavation. Since then, they've excavated another 20 or 25 feet deep from there. On this slide, we've got the bullet item for the full closure. I think we talked about that a little bit. We're hoping that if we come to the board and we can get that extra closure, that will allow for the contractor to start its tunneling from the launch box after the first of the year. Also, at the Constellation Station, we've had some utility relocations performed. We've talked about that in the past. What had remained as of last time was some AT&T cable pulling and splicing into conduit and ducts that we had relocated for that purpose. They have since completed that work. I think it was about a month ago they completed the work. What is still outstanding is DWP cable pulling and splicing. They have indicated that they should be done, and we're on schedule to complete hopefully by the end of the year, which will accommodate the contractor to start its piling and supportive excavation for the greater station excavation, which we showed on the previous slide, to begin again after the first of the year. Lastly, since we spoke last, the new temporary Santa Monica bus layover in Santa Monica Boulevard median between Avenue of the Stars and Century Park East has been completed and is operational. Lastly, the Business Interruption Fund information. Since we met last, the data is here. We've granted an additional $400,000 in 13 grants and 5 additional businesses. Are there any questions?
Is the business interruption fund gonna, is that activity gonna pick up as progress happens, or is this a design that is just not gonna result in much of a need for that?
That's a difficult question to say. So the street's obviously been closed for some time. Excuse me. So you would think that businesses that, Paula can come, but you would think that the businesses that would have been impacted would have already requested
Yeah.
to avail themselves of the service. As the closure continues, and if it's extended, you would think that they might again. But the amount of small businesses in the Century City area, I think, is limited because, let's face it, there's some very tall, sophisticated building owners in that area. But I'll let Paula speak to that.
Well, and they're also not interrupted that much right now with, I mean, the small stores, the people are still in the office towers above them.
Yeah.
You still wait in line for a sandwich? Yeah, okay.
If I'd like to, I'd just like to add that there are eligibility criteria that businesses have to meet, including being able to demonstrate that they have had revenue loss that is directly related to the construction. And so they may be impacted, but at the same time, when we look at their financial documents as part of the application process, that's one of the key criteria that we also have to look at. And if there's no revenue loss, then there really is no basis for a grant.
Okay. Thank you. Anything further? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Pennington, you have one more?
Good morning, President James and Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to give you an update on Purple Line Section 3. For those that are not familiar with the project, this will pick up from the terminus of Section 2 and will continue for approximately 2.5 miles and provide stations at UCLA and the VA. We're still early on in the project. We awarded a tunnel contract earlier this calendar year, and we awarded our stations contractor several months ago. So on the next slide, we do have an update for our tunnel contract. We're continuing with our field investigations, and for the SE duct bank within the County of Los Angeles, we did commence that construction. We will be beginning in the City of Los Angeles later this year. And I'd like to thank the city departments, LADOT, LABOE. They have kept up with the schedule for a contractor to keep that work going on the contractor's schedule. For the station's contract, we just initiated the final design, so that is in progress, and we're continuing with our easement acquisitions. Later in the year, we'll also see that they'll be beginning some of the field investigations as well. For our advanced utility contract, as earlier reported, we have met the substantial completion for that contract, and we're working on closeout. And then we do have some other third-party utility relocations in the UCLA Westwood area. Those are ongoing, and we're on schedule to have those completed before spring of 2020. And the last slide that we have is for the Business Interruption Fund. Since we really haven't started, I'll say, the real construction in the field, we haven't impacted the local businesses, so to date we don't have any awards for the Business Interruption Fund. With that, are there any questions?
I don't see any. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Pennington, is that it? Anything further, colleagues? The oral report will be received. We'll see you next quarter. Thank you, sir.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Agenda item, let's see, where were we? Number 15, I believe. Construction Services Contract, Cisco, and that's not the company, that's the acronym for the Construction Services Contract. Capital Improvement Project 8168, Hyperion Water Reclamation Plant Overflow Bypass Channel Gate Replacement Project. Recommending that the board authorize the city engineer to use the Cisco contract, that's the Construction Services Contract, to issue task work orders to the contractor for an amount not to exceed $1,122,000 for the project. Mr. Cirillo on number 15.
Good morning, Mike Cirillo with the Bureau of Engineering. So this is a request to use the Cisco project for an OBC gate replacement. The way the OBC gate works is it stands for Overflow Bypass Channel Gate. During normal operations, the flow is lifted from the primary side to the secondary side via what we call screw pumps. They're 45-degree angle pumps that lift the flow. So that's the normal course of operation at Hyperion. In the event that we lose power on those screw pumps, we cannot lift the flow from the primary side to the secondary side, and therefore the flow starts backing up. So what this gate does is, in the event that we lose power, we close this gate, and it diverts the flow basically into emergency overflow channel area where we can store the wastewater for about an hour. So it gives us about an hour of emergency time to basically restart the IPS screw pumps so we can start to convey the flow back to the secondary process. Currently, this gate is 24 years old, and it's been having some operational issues. The hydraulic system is very deteriorated, and the gate is not very reliable. So it's very important that we replace this gate in the event that we have a power failure, so we don't basically violate our permit, our discharge permit, by sending untreated wastewater out to the ocean, or worse yet, backing the flow up into the sewer system upstream of Hyperion, which would be a very bad thing. We chose the Cisco model because this is a very difficult project with respect to a confined space. The gate is deep inside of a channel. The contractor needs to ventilate the space, have confined space. They have to have a safety watch because that's a requirement of law to have a safety watch. And with a normal bid and award contract, there's a big potential for unforeseen conditions and unknowns. We don't know the condition of the concrete once we take the gate off. We may need to repair some of the concrete behind there. So we've decided that Cisco's probably a better model because we don't pay any delay costs for our Cisco contract. There's not a definitive start and end date. Now the goal is to get this gate in by the next rainy season, the 2020 rainy season. And we think we can do it with the approval by the board to use Cisco. So I do want to talk a little bit about the cost. I know this is a little bit on the high side for Cisco, which has been noted at board on certain occasions, but I want to just sort of break it down for you.
So you're adding to your statistics there, Mr. Cirillo, but go ahead.
Yeah. So the gate itself is about $500,000 to purchase the gate. It's a package unit that comes with the gate, the hydraulic system, the electrical motors, everything like that. The labor, material, and equipment to install the gate is about $400,000. So I think this is really probably $800,000 to $900,000 project. We're carrying about 20% contingency just because of the unknown conditions when we get inside the channel. We don't know what we're going to find. I'm very confident we can bring this project in less than what's shown here, but I don't want to have to come back to board a second time, so I wanted to let you know I built in about 20% contingency into this cost.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions on this one? Commissioner Garcia?
Thank you, President James. Question, I see here that the last, what is it called, overflow bypass channel gate was in service for 24 years. Do we expect the same?
Yeah, we expect anywhere from at least 25 years, and this is the new one we're buying. I'm not sure if the existing one's all 316 stainless. The new one is a 316, which is a grade of stainless steel, the best stainless steel you can buy. So I expect to get at least 25 years out of this, if not more.
Thank you. Commissioner Villegas.
It just occurred to me, the replacement or the equipment that you will be removing, how will that be handled? Will it be recycled? Will it be reused?
The steel components will be recycled. Anything that's steel, there's usually a salvage value that the contractor can get at a scrap yard. There's really not any concrete to recycle because we're just taking off the metal components of the gate. Other components like hoses and things like that will probably be into a landfill. If the contractor wants to save the motors and sell them for refurbishment, that's up to them. So that's essentially how it would be handled.
Thank you. Anything further? I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 15, seconded by Commissioners Caloza and Garcia. Any objection? With that objection, we'll adopt number 15. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any issue sending number 15 forthwith? We'll send number 15 forthwith. Mr. Cirillo, you're here on number 22. It's a sole source procurement and construction services contract, again, Cisco, with Xylem, XYLEM, Incorporated for Gould's vertical turbine pumps, recommending that the board authorize the city engineer to use the Cisco and to issue task work orders to the contract for an amount not to exceed $649,000, a little kind of right in the mid-range of what we use Cisco for the Terminal Island Water Reclamation Plant Advanced Water Purification Facility Phase 1 Product Water Pumps Upgrade Capital Improvement Project. 8549. And secondly, authorize the city engineer to sole source the procurement of 3 Xylem pumps, which you will explain the need for.
Yes, I will.
Go ahead, sir.
Good morning again, Mike Cirillo with the Bureau of Engineering. So this project is at our Terminal Island Water Reclamation Plant, and it's actually the tail end of the advanced water purification facility. So after we highly purify all the water through the Terminal Island plant, that reclaimed and recycled water needs to be conveyed to users outside of the plant. And the product water pumps are what do that. They pump the water into the conveyance system to the LA County wells. We do send some to DWP, and then there's also future uses projected for that water. So without those pumps, obviously, you can't convey water outside the plant. The plant was built in 2 phases. Phase 1 was built in 2000, 2001, and Phase 2 was accepted about 2 years ago. The pumps we're talking about replacing are part of Phase 1. They are existing Xylem pumps, but they're an older model, and they're not the same performance as the Phase 2 pumps that we recently completed. So our goal here is to replace these 20-year-old pumps with more reliable pumps, and it only makes sense in our mind to minimize training for the operators, minimize spare parts, a consistency of operations that we match with these old pumps. We take them out and we match what we have in Phase 2, which were installed, as I mentioned, a couple of years ago. So that way all the pumps are rated the same, they're all the same size, they're all the same performance, they have the same maintenance requirements, and sanitation really likes to have consistency in their wastewater operations. So that's the reason for the sole source. And again, we recommend the use of Cisco because it's not an extremely large project, and it is in Murray's wheelhouse in terms of mechanical work. This is what they do. They're good at it. They're efficient. We think we get competitive pricing when we go with Murray for mechanical type work. The pumps themselves cost about $380,000, and I have about $200,000 for labor, material, and equipment, and I have about 10% contingency I'm carrying just for unforeseen conditions as we get in the field if we've got to replace any valves or piping after we start pulling the pumps out.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Cirillo? Thank you, sir. Mr. Jordan, were you clear on, you're okay on sole source justification here?
Yes, I concur in the joint recommendation from the 2 bureaus.
Great, thank you. I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 22, seconded by Commissioner Garcia. Thank you. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 22. Any issues sending 22 forthwith? We'll send 22 forthwith. We have some tree items this morning. Let's go to agenda item number 18, 2 contract awards related to our tree inventory data collection project, which is very exciting. Agenda item number 18 and 19, but let's take them one at a time. Number 18, Council Districts 1, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, and 15. Contract award, street tree inventory data collection project within certain neighborhoods of Zone 1. Recommending that the board find Davy Resource Group to be the lowest responsible bidder for the street tree inventory data collection project with certain neighborhoods of Zone 1 in the amount of $2.99 per tree. And secondly, authorize the Bureau of Street Services, otherwise known as Streets LA, to award the task between the City of Los Angeles and the Davy Resource Group. Dr. Campos, have you received any cards on number 18?
None.
Okay, Mr. Spots, go ahead, sir.
Good morning. I'm Greg Spots, Assistant Director and Chief Sustainability Officer of Streets LA, and I'm joined by 3 of our staff from the Urban Forestry Division. We have Tim Tyson, who's our Chief Forester, and his deputy Hector Benuelos, and Ann Veal, who's the Management Analyst who handles contracting process for Urban Forestry Division. We're very excited to be bringing this forward to you. This is the result, this project, of new funds that were provided in the fiscal year 1920 budget by the Mayor and Council. $2 million was provided to perform an updated inventory of the 700,000 street trees in Los Angeles, and that inventory is to be in a cloud-based, public-facing, modern system. There was an inventory performed in the late 90s. Back then, we didn't have GPS, so there's no location data, and that inventory It was updated intermittently until the budget crisis, and it's only available, behind the city firewall on city PCs. So when we obtained this funding, we spent a lot of time with our friends and colleagues at the Recreation and Parks Department because they've gotten several grants from CAL FIRE to inventory the park trees. And we wanted to learn from them how they went about doing this work. And we identified a really terrific opportunity to have a unified inventory of the street trees and the park trees in the same cloud-based computer system. And this is different than what happens sometimes with different city departments going their own way and doing different things. We felt that we could build on the progress Rec and Parks has been making, and that the public could view the street trees and park trees in a mobile-friendly online map all together in one place. We also thought there'd be great benefits for tree planting projects because city plants will work with not-for-profit planting partners, and sometimes these planting projects include both street trees and park trees. So we would be able to use this system and give our contractors and city plants different user rights so they could work within this data, identify planting opportunities, and manage those within this unified system. It's exciting the Davy Treekeeper system that Rec and Parks adopted has all kinds of tree management functions as well as the inventory functions. So it's much more substantial than just an inventory. It's actually a system that you use to write work orders and initiate work on trees and record that work. So once we decided we wanted to go with a unified concept, we learned about the way Rec and Parks has gone about procuring field arborist services. And it turns out Rec and Parks already had 4 contractors in city contracts with Rec and Parks to do this work. And what they do is when they're getting ready to do a tree inventory in a certain park or a group of parks, they issue a notice for bid to these existing contractors, and the contractors respond to the notice, and they award it to the lowest bidder. So we've gone about doing the exact same thing for our work here. So in August 2nd, we issued a notice to bid to the 4 existing contractors. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble focusing with the crosstalk. Thank you. So we issued a notice for bid to the 4 existing contractors, and we received 3 bids. We actually had a pre-bid meeting on Tuesday, August 13th. So we issued the notices for bid on August 2nd. We had the pre-bid meeting on August 13th, and then we received the bids on August 27th. It's a sealed bid process where everyone submits a bid at the same time, and then they're all opened together. So we're here today to award these tasks. By the way, of the 700,000 street trees, we divided them into 3 groups. We have the flat areas in the metro zone, the flat areas in the valley zone, and the hilly areas. And today we're bringing forth to you the flat areas in the metro zone and the flat areas in the valley zone. In the hills, sometimes there are no sidewalks, and it can be confusing what trees are street trees and what trees are private property trees. Often you have to reference Navigate LA and look at the boundaries of the property and where the public right-of-way is. And so we thought we'd start with the easier areas, get some experience under our belt, and then move to those hilly areas later. So we have these 2 packages that we think comprise about 2/3 to 3/4 of the street trees for you to review today. We opened the bids and we received 3 bids. 1 company did not submit a bid, and only 1 of the bids was deemed responsive, the bid from Davy Resource Group at $2.99 a tree. In our notice for bid, we were very clear that we were asking the contractor to actually enter data into the Rec and Parks Davy Treekeeper system. We said on the first paragraph of the notice for bid, data will be collected sequentially for each neighborhood council geographic area and input by the contractor into the city's Davy Treekeeper software, which currently contains information on certain trees within Los Angeles city parks. Of the 3 bidders, only Davie Resource Group specifically noted in their proposal that they would be inputting the information as requested into Davie Treekeeper. There was another bidder, Arbor Pro, which had a lower bid of $2.36, and their proposal talked about Davie Treekeeper and also Arbor Pro's proprietary software for tree inventory and tree management. And we asked them for a clarification on whether they were actually bidding to enter this data directly into Davie Treekeeper. We had a teleconference with them in September, and then they sent us a letter on September 11th offering a new price of $2.70 to actually do what we asked them to do in the notice for bid, to enter the data directly into Davie Treekeeper. And the whole point of a sealed bid process is the bidders don't know what the other people are bidding. You don't get a do-over once those bids have been revealed. So it became clear to us that the original bid was non-responsive to the actual task, which was not only collect the information, but enter it into Davie Treekeeper without any post-processing by our agency. So we recommend that both the Zone 1 package and the Zone 2 package be awarded to Davie at this time.
So, thank you, Mr. Spots. Recognizing, are there any differences other than the simplified, very good explanation you gave on zones 1, 2, and eventually 3, I guess, for the hillside? Recognizing, completely understand the rationale for waiting on that one. I completely agree. Anything of note between Zone 1 and Zone 2 in the various contracts with Davie Resource Group, other than what you've communicated in your presentation?
The administrative process and the tasks are identical, except there's a different list of neighborhood councils. And by the way, I forgot to mention, we're very excited that we've asked the bidders to conduct the inventory by neighborhood council area. And that means every 2 or 3 weeks we'll have another little completion. And we've asked that the contractor provide a statistical summary report of the street trees in each neighborhood council that we can share with the neighborhood council at one of their hearings. So we've kind of broken up a very large multi-year project into 99 smaller projects that really are relatable by community members, and we think that's really exciting.
I think it's great. And by the way, I would add or ask that either you or someone on your team and you may have already done this, probably already have, but let Dunn, the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, know all this so that they can put out one of their blast emails to all their neighborhood council members, so the neighborhood council members know what Streets LA is doing in this respect. I visit neighborhood councils regularly, and the number one, if I had to, just based on my own anecdotal knowledge and experience, the number one issue, if I had to check a box of multiple choice items, would be trees out of the many neighborhood councils I've been to over the years. So I think they're going to be very appreciative and excited and inspired to know all that.
Thank you. We will definitely do so.
Secondly, I do want to thank you, Mr. Spots, and your team here as well, Mr. Manuelos, Mr. Tyson. Adele Hajj-Khalil at Streets LA. Rachel Malrich is here, our city forest officer. Jennifer Pope-McDowell from the mayor's office. We really appreciate all the support. This is not only a national news story, but an international news story when the city of Los Angeles is making this real progress towards a very exciting tree inventory. This is something that we've wanted to do the entire time that we've been on the board, dating back to 2013, and it's just very great to see it come to fruition. So I'm very pleased to get your report this morning. Commissioner Caloza.
Thank you, President James. I echo what he said, and thanks Streets LA for all your work on this, and really appreciated the tree briefing I got a few months ago when I started. I just had a few quick questions on the cost. The cost of $2.99 per tree, is that about average for what Rec and Parks paid for their tree inventory with Davy?
Yes, our engineer's estimate was $3.
Okay. And then I noticed that, so we have $2 million allocated to actually update our inventory system. So 700 at 1,000 street trees times $3, I think you're a little bit of $100,000 short to actually count all the trees needed. So what is the plan there for Streets LA to kind of figure out the gap in funding, since I think we're short of the amount needed to actually count all the street trees needed?
Yes, that's correct. And, it's a multi-year project, and this is the funding that we have for this current fiscal year. We won't expend all of this money in this fiscal year. Like, each of these will take more than a year. I think we asked for 15 months completion on these. So we might be able to find efficiencies to get it done by the original $2 million, or we may have to come back with a very small additional budget request.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Klozak. Commissioner Davis.
What are some of the outcomes of us being able to implement or gain such a tree inventory in the city of Los Angeles? What will we be able to do after having achieved this as it relates to Streets LA?
Unlimited.
Thank you. Great question. There's so many different things we can do when we can strategically manage this asset. One of the things we can do is having a tree inventory is a necessary predicate towards developing an urban forestry management plan, which is a big goal for the city. And also, it will give us the ability to plan our work based on an accurate assessment of not only what we have, but the condition that it's in. These firms that will be doing the field work have licensed arborists, and they can make a health assessment of the tree. We can't make that health assessment public, but we will have the ability to prioritize which of the standing dead trees are the most create the most public safety risk, and we can focus our 2 dead tree removal crews on those particular trees, and that's something I think is very exciting. We'll also be able to develop multi-year plans on where we want to trim trees, where we want to plant trees. We can also analyze how the trees are doing in different areas or different species of trees. We'll know so much more about these pests that have been, working their way through certain neighborhoods, particularly in the valley, because we'll be able to see how different trees in different places are doing. I mean, right now we don't have a comprehensive database on which trees have Xylella, but we'll be able to know that from doing this inventory. We already have equipped our urban forestry supervisors at Streets LA with tablets, but now they'll be able to update the work that they do directly into the inventory every day. So we'll have a real-time report on all the work that's going on. It really opens up a whole universe of strategic possibilities.
Great. I would suspect that will also give us a closer look at those areas where we have a need for further development of planting trees, and really give us a closer look at how much challenge we have in some of those areas as well.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, the task includes identifying stumps and vacant planting sites. So we're not only going to count how many trees we have, but how many places to put trees we have where there isn't a tree. And that will be very, very helpful in identifying, under-canopied areas for focus.
Great. Great report. And my final question is, in terms of best practices, are there other urban areas like Los Angeles that that have what we're about to engage in terms of tree inventory?
Yes, many cities already have a public-facing, cloud-based tree inventory. New York has been one of the leaders in that, and 3 or 4 years ago, Tim, Tyson, and I identified that some of cities had been leading in this area, and we looked at some of the online maps that were available and identified this was something we wanted to do, and it took several years to identify the funding. So I can't say we're a leader in this area, but once we've implemented, we may have one of the largest implementations of any city in the country.
Thank you for your report.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. And with new technology, there are things that we're going to be able to do with the inventory that right now we can't even contemplate, very likely. Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you, President James. This is more of a practical question, and you alluded it. We're going to be one of the biggest ones. I take that. Can you just give me, without going into really specific details, kind of the method that we're using to track and identify all these trees, since we have such a large city? I know we're contracting it, but is there any specialty that they're going to use? Like, are they going to use drones? That kind of question.
It's an in-person physical inspection of every tree because that's how we get that very important health assessment and risk assessment. So it's more than just something you could do with technology or remotely. And you have to pay for that, but it's just going to be so valuable because we know that we have thousands of standing dead trees, but we haven't inspected every one of them, and now we'll be able to really focus our dead tree removal on that. So on a given weekday, there'll be something like 6 to 12 contracted arborists out in the field with tablets collecting data, one tree at a time, covering one block at a time, and we've asked that they focus, they start in one neighborhood council area and then finish that before they move to the next one. So, we'll be able to have data and maybe even maps that can be shareable throughout the process as each neighborhood council area is completed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you. I commend you on your report. I really appreciate just getting the briefing yesterday and being brought up to date. And I'm sure that you're well aware of this, just a lot of other grants, and this will be an iterative process, just with either with the state, with CAL FIRE, through Measure A at the Los Angeles County Open Space District. There's many opportunities just to be able to get additional grant funds, and I'm more than happy to help on that process.
Thank you very much. Yes, we actually applied for a CAL FIRE grant for this project and didn't get it. But our friends at Bureau of Sanitation did get a 7-figure CAL FIRE grant in that cycle, so the city did well. And we just had gotten that news right when the budget process was coming to its head, so we were able to obtain this funding, having exhausted those other possibilities.
Thank you. Anything further? Then I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda items 18 and 19. Seconded by Commissioner Davis and Commissioner Caloza. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda items 18 and 19. Any issues sending them forthwith? We'll send them forthwith. Mr. Spots, I see that you're here on number 17, Streets LA, policy number 799, amendment to policy number 125, rules for sidewalk vending, drinking straws for all vending activity. Recommending that the board first approve an amendment to the rules and regulations for sidewalk vending to include a new rule related to compliance with Article 3 to Chapter 19. Is that 19?
We did a little switcheroo here. Manuel Perez for Streets LA.
It's 19, right?
Yes, Article 3, Chapter 19
Yeah,
of
I'm
LAMC.
just trying to read the Roman numeral. I'm a little off in my...
XIX.
Yeah, thank you, 19. Of the Los Angeles Municipal Code regulating these. I can read them if they're in front of the word
I
Super
Googled
Bowl,
it.
but I have trouble reading them in other instances. Regulating the use of disposable plastic drinking straws for vending in farmers markets and inclusion of the Los Angeles International Airport to Los Angeles Municipal Code Section 42.13, Section C, as a restricted location for sidewalk vending. Go ahead, sir, and thank you, whoever tipped me off.
Good morning, President James, Commissioners, City Attorney, Executive Officer Dr. Campos, and Bureau representatives. I am here today to request amendments to the sidewalk vending rules and regulations. The first being, in our efforts to combat the problem of plastic drinking straws, we're requesting that the board amend the rules and regulations to include the regulation of drinking straws in accordance with Article 3, Chapter 19 of LAMC with the sidewalk vendors and also farmers markets. In our second, we are requesting that LAX be included on the restricted list of location for sidewalk vending in accordance with LAMC 42.13C, as we believe this will be able to assist us in avoiding the safety problems, traffic impediments, and overall blight. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. My question mainly is for Mr. Jordan. We need to do this just to comply with the existing ordinances that are circulating, correct?
That is my understanding, yes.
Yeah, okay. Then I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 17, seconded by Commissioners Davis and Caloza. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 17. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any
and
issues sending 17 forthwith?
Welcome, Commissioner Villegas.
Oh, thank you. Any issues sending 17 forthwith? We will send 17 forthwith. Number 20, engineering and streets sanitation, I'm sorry. Council District 6, RFQ, request for qualifications, Donald C. Tillman Water Reclamation Plant Equalization and Emergency Power Backup Project and various project segments regarding the Donald C. Tillman Advanced Water Purification Facility, Primary Equalization Basin Project, the Tillman Backup Power Project, Tillman Avors and Evis Gates Replacement Project, and Tillman Screw Pump Inlet Gates Project, recommending that the board authorize the city engineer to distribute the transmitted request for qualifications, that's the RFQ, for the purpose of reestablishing a pre-qualified list of design-build entities, and secondly, authorize staff from engineering and sanitation to evaluate and qualify the respondents based on the requirements set forth in the RFQ and to develop a recommended list of pre-qualified design-build entities for the project and project segments. Tillman Advanced Water Purification Facility, Primary Equalization Basin Project, Tillman Backup Power Project, Tillman Avors and Evis Gates Replacement, and Tillman Screw Pump Inlet Gates Project. Mr. Cirillo, you're here with Mr. Ruiz on number
I'm going to
20.
let Mike Ruiz start the presentation.
Go ahead.
Good morning, President Kevin James, Commissioners, Bureau Representatives. My name is Mike Ruiz, and I'm representing Water Reclamation Division. So we're here to request for the authority to pre-qualify design-build entities for the Donald C. Tillman Water Reclamation Project, consisting of 4 projects. One, the Primary Equalization Basin, which will capture much more needed flow for our groundwater replenishment projects. Our backup power project for the treatment plant. The Avors and Evis gates, these are the gates that feed the flow to the treatment plant. And also the inlet screw pumps gates that feed the flow to our 8 screw pumps at the treatment plant. The reason we want to combine all these projects because it will minimize construction time and cost. It'll maximize the efficiency and then also minimize the operation impacts at the treatment plant. Also, you know, we're running out of room at the treatment plant. We got multiple projects there going on right now. And so we have limited space. Combining all in one project will allow us to basically manage the project, you know, a lot easier. And it's going to be easier for our project managers to manage the project if we combine them all in one project. Mike here is going to give you more details on the criteria and the approach.
Thank you, Mr. Ruiz. Mr. Cirillo, welcome back, sir.
Yes, good morning again, Mike Cirillo with the Bureau of Engineering. So this is very common for us to do when we have a project this complex and this large. As Mike explained, it's multiple areas of the plant. It's a very large project, over $70 million. We typically, when we have this type of situation, we like to pre-qualify bidders because we want to make sure that the firm that gets this project, because it's going to be bid via low bid, essentially, we want to make sure that whichever firm takes on this project is fully capable to do it. From a performance standpoint, from a safety standpoint, from a track record standpoint, they need to have the history and experience to do something this large, because nobody wants to fail, including the contractor. So this is common. And we've used this model before at Terminal Island and other plants, and it's worked very successfully. So essentially what happens is we prepare a request for qualifications with the selection criteria listed in the board report, which essentially is experience, references, safety, their claims and lawsuits records, their timeliness of completion. We do check their references. We call their previous projects to understand exactly how well they performed. We want to know who the project manager is, the strength of the project manager. Have they done this stuff before? Who the rest of the staff is on their team. And then lastly, their experience in construction and quality assurance and quality control to make sure that, because there's a design build component in here, we want to make sure that whoever's doing the design knows what they're doing and it's going to be error-free and provide us the quality project that we paid for. So we're combining 4 segments, and one of them is design build, which is the what we're calling the equalization basin. The rest of them have actually been fully designed by my division. We're putting those out fully designed. So all the contractor has to do for the 3 projects is just go build them. But for the largest component, which is over $40 million, they actually need to finish the design. We're going to give them basically 30-40% completed plans. They need to take that design to 100%, go get it permitted, and then build that as well. So that's the complete package. So there'll be a committee, a panel of engineering and sanitation that will evaluate the design builders, and they'll be primes only. We're not going to pre-qualify subs, because what's going to happen, there's no outreach, you probably noticed, in terms of business inclusion at this point. What we do now is we just pre-qualify down to the top 3 firms, and then when the project's sent out for bid in the spring, that's when they'll go through the outreach business inclusion requirements as part of BAVIN. So it's not going to happen now, it's going to happen later. So that's why we're not pre-qualifying the entire team. So as I mentioned, we'll evaluate the firms and we will score them and we'll keep a record on file, and the top 3 firms will be permitted to bid on the project, and we intend to advertise sometime in the spring.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions at all? Commissioner Caloza.
Yeah, I have a quick clarification question. So there's 4 parts of this project, right?
Yes.
Okay. So was this portion added on accident, the one with a Donald Tillman Advanced Water Purification Facility?
Which page are you on in the report?
Just on the very first page.
Page 3? Page 3 has a table of the 4 segments.
But when I look at the first page of the actual project and the
RFQ.
item, yeah, there's 5
In the
items.
RFQ itself?
No, I don't know what page I'm like. On the board report, there's like 5 items listed, as well as in the description.
Yeah, it says in the title of the report, the Advanced Water Purification Facility Primary Equalization Basin. It's all one.
Okay, so this is just meant.
Yeah, the EQ
the
basin
large-
is part of the AWPF, but it's just one long title.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just like counting, and I was
Yeah.
like, "There's 5 here."
No, only 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you. Commissioner Villegas.
Can you give us a broader view? Once this is done, what's the next step? Are you coming back to the commission when you're selecting, or can you
Sure.
walk us through that process?
Of course. So, as I mentioned, once we pre-qualify the top 3 firms, the project will be packaged up at our bid and award unit and sent out to bid, and only those 3 firms will be invited to bid. And that'll be done through a low bid evaluation, including business inclusion outreach. The lowest responsible bidder will be recommended award, and then we'll be back to board with a recommendation to award to that firm at the board here.
Your expected timeline?
Well, if we advertise it in March, we'll be back here in the fall of 2020. It's still a ways away.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? All right. I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 20, seconded by Commissioner Garcia. Thank you. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt. Did you second that too, Davis? Davis and Garcia. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 20. Any issue sending number 20 forthwith? We'll send 20 forthwith. Thank you, sir. Agenda item number 21, Council District 14, Engineering and Sanitation, Task Order Solicitation number 18-005. Pre-qualified on-call engineering services consultants list for Layton Consulting Company. Recommending that the board authorize the city engineer to issue the task to Layton Consulting from the pre-qualified on-call geotechnical and environmental engineering services consultants list to provide environmental remediation services for the 110 South Boyle project as stated in task order solicitation 18-005 with a budget authority of $1,300,000. Mr. Schmidt on number 21.
Good morning, President James, commissioners, department representatives, Mr. Jordan, Dr. Campos, Patrick Schmidt, Bureau of Engineering, Geotechnical Engineering Division. As President James said, I'm here to request for authority to issue task force solicitation number 18005 to Layton Consulting to provide environmental remediation services for the 110 South Boyle project with a budget authority of $1,300,000. On November 27, 2017, the Board of Public Works approved a pre-qualified on-call list of geotechnical and environmental consultants to provide services for the Bureau of Engineering. The contract with Layton was executed on December 15, 2017, and will expire on December 14, 2022. The project site is a 14,620 square foot vacant lot at 110 to 114 South Boyle Avenue in the Boyle Heights area of the city of Los Angeles. The city has exercised its option to purchase the property from the Community Redevelopment Agency of Los Angeles. Following the remediation of the site is planned to be developed with a multi-story building with 44 affordable housing units, ground floor retail use, and subterranean parking. The site has been impacted by fuel contamination and is under the oversight of the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board, who has approved a remedial action plan in coordination with the efforts of the Bureau of Engineering. The remediation will consist of excavating contaminated soil to a depth of approximately 15 feet with sloping side excavations and hauling away the contaminated material